Hey everyone, it's Sam from the Danger Planet, and today I'm joined by two special guests, and we're going to be doing our very first in the series of Horus Heresy Legion Focuses. This is a series that we're launching where we talk about each of the 18 Space Marine legions from Horus Heresy. We talk about a little bit of the lore behind them, their strengths, their weaknesses, what it's like to play them, and what it's like to play against them. And to help us with this series, I'm joined by two Horus Heresy players. Michael McGill has been playing Imperial Fists in 30k and just starting Alpha Legion. But in the past, he's played Raven Guard, he's played Word Bearers, he's been playing Horus Heresy for about 8 years all over the country. He plays 40k as well, where he plays Word Bearers and Tau, and has been playing for a long time, since 5th edition. I'm also joined by Brady Tatro. He plays Raven Guard in Horus Heresy, and he's planning to play Custodes when that book comes out in October. He played a little bit of Horus Heresy in Mark 1, but has been playing a lot of Mark 2. He mostly plays 40k, especially since the launch of 9th edition, where he plays Custodes and Grey Knights, and has been playing since 7th edition. And just to round it out, we've got myself. I first started playing 40k in 3rd edition, which is almost impossibly old to imagine, but I've actually never owned a Space Marine army in my entire life up to now, and I've never played Horus Heresy until the launch of 2nd edition. So this is kind of new for me, and very exciting, and I play Alpha Legion. Brady, Mike, why don't you guys say hi?
Yeah, my name is Brady Tatro. Pleasure to be here.
Hey, this is Mike McGill, and I'm happy to be here as well. Looking forward to talking up some heresy.
Awesome. All right, let's get started. So we're going to be starting with the 16th Legion, the Luna Wolves, or as everyone knows them, the Sons of Horus. Now, these guys we figured would be the best place to start because they're right at the center of the Horus Heresy. They were originally a legion that was focused on fast spear-tip assaults and execution strikes, and they were reunited with their Primarch Horus, who, as you know, became the Warmaster. When that happened, the Emperor told him he could rename his legion, and he did. He called them the Sons of Horus. But very shortly thereafter, Horus fell to chaos and precipitated the Horus Heresy, and the Sons of Horus were at his side the entire time. This has some really timeless characters who even show up in 40k, like First Captain Abaddon, who I'm sure we'll get to. And it's a really iconic legion for the traders, the real arch traders. So if you're playing Horus Heresy and you're looking to tear down the Emperor's throne, the Luna Wolves or Sons of Horus are basically at the center of your force. So why don't you guys talk to us a little bit about how the Sons of Horus play?
Absolutely. So I do really think that the Sons of Horus do play to their lore and their fluff. If you look at kind of how they've been presented, not only in the Black books, but in the Black Library books, they're meant to be the spear tip. They're a controlled, aggressive, tear out your throat kind of force. And I feel like a lot of the rules have gotten to really immortalize this on the tabletop, particularly with some of their Legion-specific units.
All right, so let's talk about some of their specific rules. So they all have this Merciless Fighters rule, which basically says that whenever this unit charges or is charged, the strength of all the attacks made against them is at -1. And when they are like ramming with vehicles, they inflict an additional 3 hits. So how does that sort of play out with on the tabletop with these guys?
Yeah, what I really like about it is that -1 strength doesn't sound like a whole lot. But what it really means is when people come in with their Thunder Hammers, their Power Fists, they're not instant deathing your Terminators now that they're all 2 wounds. You really have, again, that spear tip, that really, really durable. They're going to have to take out every single wound and really dig you out, while you are able to hit them back at the same efficiency all your Thunder Hammers, all your Power Fists have.
Absolutely. It really turns into it's said on the page, when you first look at it, might feel lackluster, but once you get on the table, there's a lot of advantages to it that give you that spear tip feel. And as a minor note, whenever we get into Blood Angels, you'll see that they're actually the complete antithesis of the Blood Angels themselves. It mitigates their entire rule, which I feel really plays again once to that kind of lore that we're building up to in the Siege of Terra. But overall,
versus Horus, who can forget it, right?
Absolutely, it's one of the king fights. It's the main match.
So I'm also looking at their advanced reaction, and it's kind of interesting. Death Dealers. It says that when somebody is shooting you, your unit this is their once per game reaction, can actually shoot back first, increasing its ballistic skill by +1. Now, I'm a little curious about how this works, especially how this is different from the standard reaction that everyone gets about shooting back. And also, it's a little interesting to see that they have a trait that's very focused on melee, but a advanced reaction that's focused on shooting. How does that work together on the table?
So one of the big advantages here is if you look at all the legions across the board, they kind of have a percentage of what they're better at between combat and melee. And Sons of Horus, between their legion-specific rule, their reaction, and their ammunition that they can take, they kind of balance 50-50 in a lot of cases. Or can, if that's what you want to do. They really are strength at that medium range and close range. This particular one, compared to the regular, you'll take the damage technically when you get hit by the regular reaction and then still get to shoot. This one gets to deal the damage first, resolve all of those hits, and then the unit fires at you, which, depending when you use, can be game changing, much like what they say in that kind of opening blurb right above the actual reaction itself, that these advanced reactions can change how the game goes.
To add to that, what the biggest difference is the advanced reaction for the other one, again, beyond shooting after the opponent has already shot you, you can shoot from any distance. This one has to be within 12 inches. So again, it's really promoting that Sons of Horus player. You're pushing forwards, and once you get into that mid-range, your opponent is out of good options. They don't want to charge you. Their weapons aren't going to be as good as your weapons. And if they shoot you, you're going to shoot them back better, because you're going to lose like 2, 3, 4 models before you even get to shoot them. So that is really going to keep you durable in that mid-board.
Although it does say that models removed as casualties still attack, but yeah, I can see that you can inflict some serious damage with this. So moving on to the Warlord traits, I don't want to go into the total detail about what every Warlord trait does. We're not trying to just sort of reproduce the entire book here, but which of those really stand out to you guys? And especially with how strong special characters are in Horus Heresy and how strong their Warlord traits are, which of these do you think you could see yourself taking?
That's really tough. I personally like all the traits that they have, particularly looking at myself, the Chosen by the Dark Gods. I like the idea of having a champion, someone who's a little tougher, can get that wound back on a 6, but also the high risk, high reward as a old Ward Bearers player. Having the chance to hurt yourself is always amusing to me, but the fact that you can get that +1 to your characteristics between strength and toughness, already combined with their Legion specific rule, can really give you a pretty tough champion Praetor that hopefully can go toe-to-toe if you run into any of the named characters on the board that some of the other Praetors might not have.
Great. It sounds like they have a lot of good options. So now we're going to talk about Rites of War. Now, for people who are maybe new to Horus Heresy or who haven't played the game but are interested about it, Rites of War are kind of special ways to build your army, almost like a theme force for people who played War Machine Hordes. They give you certain restrictions on how you can build your army and what your army does on the board, but in return for those restrictions, you get some pretty cool bonuses. And the Sons of Horus, like many legions, have 2 of them. So they've got the Black Reaving and the Long March. Mike, what can you tell us about these Rites of War? Do you feel like you prefer one over the other? It looks like the Black Reaving is kind of focused very heavily on these melee troops, whereas the Long March is focused on more elite troops, like Cataphractii and Tartarus Terminators. What can you tell us about how these rites play?
So both have a lot of advantages as far as Rites of War go. Specifically for me with Black Reaving, I like being able to take the Reavers as a line choice. If you look at the Reavers, they are the quintessential unit for Sons of Horus. They hit hard, they hit with lots of attacks, and you don't have to really do a lot to upgrade them to get what they need out of them. They're already 2 attacks base, then plus the paired weapons, then plus the charge. So they're already a solid unit. The chain axes get them +1 to their strength. And that gives you a chance to take those, give them that troop and line unit subtype, and gives you that aggressive feel as you're moving up the board, taking objectives from your opponent. The downside that people run into is you can't have more heavy support than your fast attack. And one of the things I think people focus too on is trying to getting good fast attack when there's some great cheap options that you can put in there and focus your heavy hitting on your Reavers, Justaerin, and those heavy support. And the Squadron really helps you take more and get more out of that heavy support when you can only take 2 reasonably.
Cool. Brady, what do you think? Do you have one of these that you prefer over the other?
I personally am kind of in agreement on the Black Reaving. The requirement to have more fast attack, like fast attack is, in my opinion, such a good slot right now, just because you're not going to have the points for a lot of heavy support. Getting line is so powerful. It's so important in this edition. And lastly, getting a Master of Sigil, for me, that's not really a downside. It's encouraging to take a really good HQ unit. The only thing I don't super love about the Black Reaving is the rage. Getting that Rage 2 effect is not the easiest. So it's not terrible, but it's definitely not something you're going to build into. You're really building for that line on your Reaver squads.
Just to add in and talking about that rage, and some people might overlook this, but definitely a point to consider. And I agree, it can be a little challenging to get. However, if you look at that second part in the effects, the one unit can actually just be the target of at least one charge. You don't actually have to be successful with both charges to get the effect. So it'd be smart to kind of play it where the long charge goes first. If it doesn't get it, that's okay. The second, more close charge that you kind of line up for yourself is going to get that rage. But it is a little more challenging, you're right. And before we move on, just to kind of discuss the Long March, despite me preferring Black Reaving, much like Brady, the Long March has a lot of great attributes as well. Particularly, I like the outflanking Justaerin. And doing a kind of odd trick that I've learned from playing against them a number of times is actually not taking the axes, but the power mauls for your Justaerin. Really gives them a all-around effect. And when you're deep striking or outflanking with those guys, getting close to being able to get to vehicles that your opponent doesn't want you to touch with strength 7 on the charge can be really advantageous.
Cool. It sounds like they've got 2 really good options. So I'm looking now at the armory that they have. And Brady, I'm remembering what you said earlier about this sort of balance between the ranged and the melee abilities. It looks like they have the special Banestrike bolter rounds, which I certainly love being an Alpha Legion player. And they've got also these Carcerin power axes. Now, these tools that they have seem like a little lower impact, a little bit more marginal than some of the war gear that's really defining for some of the other factions. How do these slot into the overall picture of the Sons of Horus?
Yeah, I'll start with the power axes, and yes, they don't have that like raw power that you would maybe be expecting seeing from other legions. But what you really get, I think like a really important part of that is it's a completely free upgrade. Where if you're looking at like other legions, you're going to be paying 5-10 points every single time you want to replace your special legion weapon. This is just going to give you a better power sword, essentially, for free, which does really start adding up, because if you can take those points and put them into other upgrades or more units, where those other legions they may have slightly more powerful legion armory upgrades, but they're paying for it.
That is Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Please.
Sorry. Nah, that's an absolutely great point, Brady. Particularly when you're talking about that adding points up for characters and sergeants. I like to call it the champ trap, where people will really invest a lot into these character units that might not really be the best at doing a combat or challenge, and will still fall to a lot of the big, Praetors or named characters. So that's a great point. The points that you sink into those upgrades can really add up into your list and drag you down.
All right. So yeah, it sounds like they've got some good strengths there. But now I think we're going to talk about what everyone's really looking forward to, which is all the really cool, unique units that the Sons of Horus get. All these legions get all different types of unique units, unique named characters, and they're always really central to how the Legion plays. So I think I'm pretty excited to talk about these. And we're going to start with the Dark Emissary. Now, many of the legions have a unique console upgrade. These are basically upgrades you spend points on to upgrade a Centurion, who's the level below Praetor for HQ characters, to a specialist of some kind. And the Sons of Horus one is called the Dark Emissary, and he seems kind of unique because his biggest bonus for having a Dark Emissary actually comes if you have an allied detachment. So if you're playing a primary army of some other legion, but you have some Sons of Horus along with them, this guy seems like he can come in clutch there. Is that something you think you'll often be doing, Mike?
So I would say as a having Alpha Legion as my Traitor Legion, or when I played Word Bearers, it is definitely fun to bring an allied detachment. When I used to play Word Bearers, it was more of a cult militia that I'd bring, but absolutely with this unique unit like a Dark Emissary, it kind of plays to that fact. And if you read the Black Library books, this kind of sounds like the character Argonis, who would go, speak on the Warmaster's behalf. So it definitely plays to a fluffy point, and he's not a bad thing to bring in an allied list. Absolutely not. Not the most common thing I do, but it would make it a lot of fun, and he is useful.
All right.
To kind of.
Oh yeah, please go ahead, Brady.
No, to kind of add to that, like, yes, you are going to you're paying that tax of bringing an allied, that allied detachment. But the advantage that you do get is, if you are pushing with a kind of like a blob of units, and you're really trying to do that spearhead, especially with like Terminators, having everyone get to use Leadership 10 is really, really useful. Pinning is such a big deal in this edition. Sleeping advances have always been a big deal. And just basically saying, I have basically the highest leadership. I think there's very few units with Leadership 11, but it's not very common. And just saying, I'm all these units within 6. They're not running. They're not pinning. They're just going to push forward. Really, really useful. Man, it feels bad having your units run.
Yeah, I can imagine. So now I think we're not gonna bury the lead. We're gonna talk about the big man himself. Now this is the guy at the heart of the Horus Heresy. The whole setting's named after him. Horus Lupercal, the Primarch of the Sons of Horus. He's 600 points. That is a super heavy tank. But I'm just looking at this guy, and it seems like he basically does everything. Strength 7, toughness 7, 7 wounds. He makes your whole army have +1 leadership and stubborn. And of course, he's an absolute terror in combat, just tearing things apart with his Talon and with Worldbreaker. But still, 600 points is a lot. So I guess we'll start with Brady. Brady, what do you think of this guy? Do you think if you were playing Sons of Horus, you'd be bringing Horus himself pretty much every time?
I actually don't take the most favorable look on Primarchs. They're really, really good. They're really, really cool. They're iconic. There's that beautiful board piece you put on, and like the whole game shop looks when you put them on the board. But he's 600 points. And the model is 600 points. You're probably going to need to take, a Terminator squad to bodyguard him, or even with that really impressive stat line, if he has no bodyguards, eventually enough las cannons will take him down. So I take more of a negative view on Primarchs. I know that's maybe a little bit controversial, but I look at them as they're really cool, they're really fun, and they are really powerful, but they're probably not going to make their points back just because it is one model plus the tax of whatever unit is taxing them around to make sure they don't die.
So, caveating off of that, a big piece here is, you're right, the bodyguard is pretty essential when it comes to the Primarchs, and it always looks cool when you get to bring the Terminator bodyguard or the big beefy guys. I'll actually say the best way that I have seen Horus run when it comes to the bodyguards is actually with a big squad of despoilers. It does give him protection. It's about 20 extra wounds that he gets to throw around, and it's a volume of attacks. He'll kill anything he touches. It's pretty much guaranteed. In combat, he has the advantage. But you're right, he's going to get whittled down if you don't have the right means. So the despoilers give him the bodies and the volume of attacks for anything else extra that might be in that combat that he doesn't really want to worry about. And you have to remember, Primarchs across the board, and the Primarch rule do have precision strikes to the point where they pretty much get to pick out what they want to kill.
So I imagine, given that we're already a little bit, cautious about his cost, we're not super excited about upgrading him to Horus Ascended. I mean, he's 1,000 points at that point, but look at that stat line. He's ridiculous.
I actually love the Ascended concept. And I agree. I'm not a proponent of bringing Primarchs every time, but I love the concept of the Ascended. He's clearly meant to be there to fight whenever the Emperor model is when it comes out. And he has so much that he can do between the Dark Fate, Power of Eternus, Chaos Eternal, and the Spreading of Corruption that he can bring to the table that, if played right, you can get a lot out of him. But this is going to be a big game you bring him to. You're going to be pushing your luck at even a 3,000 point game bringing Ascended.
Well, one of the things I really like Ascended is because it goes that ridiculous, 1,000 points for your model. You're not going to be bringing it into those smaller games. You really look at it as that piece of, we're going to do this big apocalypse game. We're going to tell this really cool story of the Siege of Terra. Let's bring Horus Ascended. You view it as kind of like one of the best parts about Heresy is we're going to start telling the story that this game system is so good at telling. And so I really, really like Ascended. If we're looking at it from a competitive sense, probably not. But from a what it is to tell that narrative story, I absolutely love Horus Ascended.
100%. Absolutely.
And if you don't convert that guy, I mean, what are you even doing, right?
Not wrong. Last point for me on the Primarchs is you will notice as we go through the rest of these legions and their Primarchs how differently the Primarchs are pointed. And I do think that GW did a great job pointing the Primarchs appropriately for what they can do. You'll see, compared to like Alfarius, he can come in much smaller point games, but he just doesn't have the same oomph that Horus brings to the table. Despite still being an excellent character to bring your army, Horus stands out at his 600 points, but it does make your flexibility on the board a little more limited.
All right, so I'm gonna go take the pages a little out of order now, because we're gonna bring it down to earth and talk about Ezekyle Abaddon, who is someone you could theoretically bring to a real game of Horus Heresy. Everyone knows this guy. He's the first captain. He is, in the future, he's going to be the Warmaster of Chaos. He's going to step into Horus's shoes, and he's going to lead the forces of Chaos 10,000 years from now. But for now, he's still 30k Abaddon. He's still loyal to his Gene Father. And he still looks like a blender. 250 points in Horus Heresy is quite a lot. So is this guy maybe someone you'd consider bringing to like a real non-narrative game a bit more?
Actually, yeah, 100% I would. His main ability, the Vengeful Spirit, coming down and giving himself and that unit a 4-up Feel No Pain, that's so, in my opinion, is just so good. You're going to take that Terminator squad, and we're probably going to kill whatever it was going to connect with, but it's going to be able to eat whatever firepower your opponent puts back into it. Deep Strike is so strong. You're going to be in their lines, and they can't deal with you that turn, because you get your 4-up invulnerable save and then a 4-up Feel No Pain afterwards. They're probably not killing that unit, and it's going to go kill another unit and just go deeper into that opponent line.
Yeah, absolutely. In addition, a good point to add is when he comes natural with Deep Strike, so the unit he joins doesn't have to take it. He's fearless, which is huge because there's not a lot of units in this game that actually have fearless outside of Primarchs. It's limited, and most of it is actually on the traitor side. And then that battle hardened, meaning that he's not going to get one-shotted by, a las cannon or, a rocket necessarily at strength 8. Being in toughness 4, he can't be insta-death as easily. It's going to take a strength 10 weapon to do it. So I really like that little addition. It's a good addition, good buff from his previous profile back in the first edition.
Cool. And so now we're going to take another step down the ladder of combat. We're going to talk about Maloghurst The Twisted. Now, fans of the novels will remember this guy as the Horus's equerry. Is very faithful, right-hand man, but somebody who took some injuries early on, even before the heresy, and so wasn't that tough wasn't that strong a fighter. And it looks like that's sort of how he plays here, but that Warlord trait's really caught my eye. Is Maloghurst someone, Mike, that you think is really useful for this more objective-focused play?
Absolutely. I'd actually take Maloghurst over Abaddon near every time, personally. I love that you can do that. You can throw them into a squad of Justaerin Terminators, and now they're going to be one of the toughest line units to move off an objective, and probably one of the more lethal ones as well. If you look at the other line units in the book, they just don't stand next to the Justaerin, and few other armies can bring that same lethality to the table. So I like him a lot more, and I also love the fluff behind him, his name being both figurative and literal, being twisted in the mind. He was Horus's political advisor, so to speak. So I think he's a fantastic character to bring, and that warlord trait's just going to be money across the board.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really disagree that he is almost certainly the better of the two options for, like, if I want to win the game, giving any unit in my army line, again, that's such a powerful keyword, is just absolutely unparalleled. I'll still say, dropping those Terminators down with Abaddon, will feel good. May not win you the game, it'll feel real good.
Awesome. And there's actually one more special character, which I think is really cool because, we're talking about the Sons of Horus, the Arch Traders, as I said, these guys, the beating heart of the heretic line. But now we have Garviel Loken, who is the loyalist Luna Wolf. And he's a major character in the novels, if you've read them, all the way through the Siege of Terra. He's a really cool guy, and I'm kind of interested. I mean, how many loyalist Luna Wolf players do you think there are out there, Brady? Do you think that they're going to be taking this guy?
If I was going to run a loyalist Luna Wolves, I would 100% would be taking Loken. And again, not even based on his overall power, but just with that sense of that just feels so good from like you're running that guerrilla, like that last bastion of like, no, we're the loyalist Luna Wolves. How could you not run Loken, especially if you've read the books?
Absolutely. He gives that feel. And as you mentioned earlier, Brady, particularly about, getting to play through the story. And I feel like that's really what Horus Heresy is about. It is kind of feels like a historical game outside of the fact that it's clearly in the future. But Garviel Loken, one, he is a solid, character to take. He's going to do a decent amount for your army, but you just get to play that story. However, on the tactical side, if I am going to bring him, I'm throwing him with Reavers. Once again, that volume of attack that he's going to be able to give to that squad is going to be pretty impressive, and it's going to be able to do a lot of damage to a lot of different units across the board. Particularly, you can combine it with something like a Destroyer Squad who has Rad Phage, so you can bring down a Dreadnought's toughness, and they're going to get a lot of volume of attacks into those types of things.
Cool. So I know we've talked now about all these cool special characters, and we've mentioned a couple times their bodyguards. And so anyone who's read the books is going to be familiar with the Justaerin. Now, one of the things I've really liked about the Horus Heresy line for a long time is the models. I mean, the models that Forge World puts out are gorgeous, and some of the best are these special Legion Terminators, the special boys everyone gets. And the Sons of Horus special Terminators are kind of head and shoulders above everybody else, it seems. They're the elite of the elite of the elite, the Justaerin. Now, they're real pricey, but just looking at them, it seems like they'd basically destroy anything that they touch. But the question is, do you think, are they really worth the amount of points you're spending on them, Mike?
Absolutely. As I said, you can get a lot out of them, particularly, as I said, combining it with maybe Maloghurst or looking at different types of weapon options that you might not consider out the gate. As I said, giving them the power mauls, you can get up to strength 7 on the charge. But axes they come with standard are not going to be anything to scoff at either. They come stubborn, chosen warriors, a great rule, and then furious charge as well, 1, which helps them get that increase to their strength. You're going to see very few things that I feel can go up to these guys toe to toe. I mean, maybe Palatine blades from Emperor's Children, and various other types of elite killers, but they are going to be a big point sink, though, and you have to be careful with how you apply that particular strength.
I personally am a little worried on the 50 point, on the 50 points, mostly because since they don't have, unless you're taking the Rite of War, that gives them the ability to outflank, I believe it is. I don't know if it's outflank. you're going to have a little bit of trouble getting them where they need to go unless you're then spending another 200, 300 plus points on a Land Raider to get them where they need to go. And I think I look at them and go, yeah, they'll delete whatever they touch, but it feels like you can get a similar Terminator body. Again, it'll be a little bit worse, but at almost half the price, which I'm not sure if it entirely justifies all those extra points, but I'm probably mistaken. I haven't been on the receiving end of them, so I feel like once I am, I'll be like, I can see why they're 50 points now, but it feels like they could come down a little bit in points.
Okay.
Yeah.
But good for the Luna Wolves or the Sons of Horus, I guess. They've got a second kind of more price to move elite option, right, in these Reaver squads. So Brady, do these guys maybe take your fancy a bit more, just being a little bit more affordable?
We've mentioned them, like Mike has mentioned them, I think every time we've talked about a unit. I love this profile for its points. I don't see a Sons of Horus player taking, less than, 10 of these every single game. There's really nothing not to like on that profile. The number of attacks, the weapon skill 5, the 2 wounds, the weapon options you get, I don't see any reason why you're not taking at least one full strength squad of this, if not 2 or 3.
Absolutely. As I've mentioned them and a couple things about them, as I said, the most vicious I've seen them has actually been pretty basic as far as the weapon options, but you definitely can kit these guys out to do a lot of damage with that counterattack, precision shots, precision strikes. Also, nothing to scoff at there. And then they're dedicated transports. Big thing here, you can put them in the Rhino, a Dreadclaw, whatever is your theme for your army, whether it be a little more mechanized or if you're going more for that deep strike, critical direct strike, these guys can meet that in every way, shape, and form. And the way you can stack their attacks by volume is going to be impressive even to some of the more elite units.
Cool. So I think now we've got a pretty good picture of what all the tools are available to the Sons of Horus, but I'm really interested to see how they come together on the battlefield. So for someone who's maybe playing the Sons of Horus, who's interested in putting an army together, Mike, what would you say are your kind of general rules for how you build an army of these guys, things to prioritize and things to think about of once you get your army on the battlefield, how you want it to play?
So kind of a general overview of it and being kind of broad. If you're not coming to the table thinking not only like the Warmaster a little bit, but that you're going to bully your opponent not in a mean way, but this army is kind of meant to bully and be very direct. It has a lot of options to get their elite units to the fight quickly, whether it be through the outflanking or anything along those lines. And then once they're in the combat phase or that mid-range, they're devastating. So I would focus a lot of your efforts on monopolizing on that mid-range to close quarters kind of battle strategy, getting in close, going for the throat, going for those heroes or kind of critical units that your opponent feels more proud about. And you're going to get that very Sons of Horus, Luna Wolves feel if that's how you play. As we said, I would be very partial to doing Maloghurst with Justaerin and taking Reavers if I'm doing the Long March. But not forgetting a few of the tactical Marines along the way or the spoilers to kind of help even out some more line. As I said, a big pitfall some people run into is that Black Reaving with the fast attack. As I said, you can do some pretty easy things with Sabers or Land Speeders if you want to focus on the heavy support. If you want to sink the points into a much more robust fast attack, you're not going to be off theme for Black Reaving or Long March, and it's going to very much help you get that spear tip feel from the Force.
Yeah, I can't really disagree. I think that's a very good overall view. You don't really want to be playing that stationary gun line that maybe you'll see from other legions. Every legion uses dreadnoughts really well. This is no exception. But again, it helps you push into that middle, take that middle. Because you are looking for, I think it'd be fair to say, Mike, you're looking for that 12 to 18 inch or closer band to be doing the majority of your fighting and engagement. You're not really looking to take those long range shooting fights.
No, absolutely. I'm sorry.
No, sorry, please. Go on.
Yeah, it's just not their specialty. They don't really have anything that benefits those long range units versus their ability to kind of get in close. And I think 18 inches is a great example, being specifically that Bane Strike ammunition they can take for Seekers, Vets, Justaerin it's a great little tool. It's much better than it was last edition. So no, I agree. It's that 18 inches is where you're going to feel comfortable, and you want to be dynamic. You want to be on the move.
Cool. So on the other hand, if you're trying to fight against the Sons of Horus and you're really, you're struggling against some of that close to mid-range power they can bring, what do you think are the best tools for people who are going against them? Maybe weaknesses they have, or things that people can look out for to try to keep them off balance and topple them from that top spot they like. Sorry, Mike.
Oh, okay. So for me, I've got a lot of experience playing against the Sons of Horus. I play against a very dynamic and aggressive player traditionally who runs them. He uses them very well. I found that durability helps, and as an Imperial Fist player, this is natural to me. But I want to kind of get them off kilter. If I can stop their advance by turn 3, they're going to stumble a little bit. And this can be done more preferably for me is that long range fight. As Brady has mentioned before, pinning is huge. The option is still here. So if you've got the means, by all means, go for it. But there's going to be a center push. If they're playing it to the lore or they're playing it to the strengths, there's going to be that center point. And focusing on pushing it and getting it off kilter and stalling it out is going to be a big advantage for you. I like las cannons. That's one of my big answers for a lot of things. It's very useful, particularly this edition, but there's a lot of heavy weapon squads that can help kind of assist in breaking that push or that big charge that they're looking for to overwhelm you and overtake you.
Yeah, and to add into all that, some like to think of like a Raven Guard player, coming around using deep strikes, flanking maneuvers, or just really fast units to dodge the spearhead and start harrying the sides is a good way to, again, break that, get them to go off kilter. And then to kind of go on to that durability aspect in a little bit deeper, their weapon specialties are not high strength or not high or low AP, whichever you want to phrase that. So by bringing those more durable, like dreadnoughts, or even like heavier tanks, again, every legion has the option to take a las cannon to deal with them, but Sons of Horus aren't going to do it better than another legion. So if you're focusing to counter just the Sons of Horus, bringing that more defensive, that higher toughness, that armor, they may not have that enough to crack it as effectively as another legion that can bring those higher strength weapons to bear.
Cool. So it does sound like they're a pretty balanced and dynamic legion. I'm glad we started with them. They've got kind of a fun play style that really plays to their strengths in the lore, and it sounds like some pretty well-defined strengths and weaknesses. But if you guys have any final thoughts on the Sons of Horus, sort of how you feel this edition's treated them, or things you're looking forward to about playing as them or playing against them, or just, thoughts on the legion in general, please, I'd love to hear them. Mike?
Absolutely. As I said, this is a dynamic legion, and it's a lot of fun to play across. I've seen it a lot, and if anything, this edition has really built upon them and helped get more of that aggressive feel. I think a lot of people are going to like them. If you like being in the center of attention, then you're definitely a Horus, and you're definitely going to like this army, because they're in every piece of the lore, and it's not hard to get them on the table and start having fun with them. And by all means, I really think building around one of those Rites of War is the best way to start. You're going to get a lot out of your army. You're going to get a lot out of them, and you're going to get enjoyment from reading the books as well, because you're the centerpiece. This is the arch traitor. So have fun with it, and definitely get in there and start going for the throat.
I can't really improve on that last sentence, so just cut this part out.
Yeah, all right. So, we love the Sons of Horus. We love their models. They've got some really cool-looking Praetors. Just really like the models they've been putting out for. Makes me hope that when they get around to my Legion, they look as good. But Yeah, so we hope this series was enjoyable for you people who are starting Horus Heresy. It's a new game for a lot of us here. Mike's been playing for a while, but Brady and I are newer to it, and Doug's newer as well. So we're hoping we can put a lot more cool new Horus Heresy content on the channel. And we're hoping we can also have the kind of content that people who like us are kind of just putting their feet in the water with Horus Heresy will find the most useful. So if you like this video, please give us a like. Please subscribe to our channel for a lot more content on Horus Heresy, on all different types of games, and please join our Discord. There's a link in the description. We talk about Horus Heresy, we talk about 40k, Malifaux, all the different games we love to play. So, till next time, thanks for coming to the Danger Planet.